Where you from? Man, I'm from down in the valley.
I got people trying to wish and pray that I'ma fall about it, all about it till we spoke in person. Don't wanna talk about it now, huh? Oh, you sound tough, toying with them, don't get wound up. How you wound up? Another number in the round up. Put the town up, built the sling up.
You mean like San Antonio? Nah, man, farther.
Got the east side flow. I'm a giant in the space like
Puro
FIFA. All the
956.
kids
V's up, player.
every time when they see my show. Thinking that it happened overnight.
Let's start the show, Wattis.
All right, DITV. Today we got a special one, someone I've been following a lot. He's been here a couple years, and when I moved here, I was looking for content, and he was my go-to. Join us tonight is someone a lot of the people in the Valley recognize from, Friday Night Lights, covering UTRGV, some of the big sports stories in the 956. But tonight we want to go a little bit behind the camera, behind the sports desk, and get to know him a little bit more. Welcome, KJ Doyle. Thanks for coming on.
Of course, thank y'all for having me. Appreciate it. Wish Danny could be here too. I know, but it's great to talk to you, Roy. Hopefully, able to make another appearance and talk to Danny too. But great to be on with you today.
Yes, sir. We'd love that to happen, and we're looking forward to it. So, wanted to jump into a kind of an icebreaker we do called Start, Bench, Cut. So, I'm going to give you three different things. You tell me who you're going to start, who you're going to bench, who you're going to cut. I have some legendary names and other that I want to throw by you. Howard Cosell, Bob Costas, or other. Who are you going to start? Who are you going to bench or cut? And other, obviously, I want to know who's on your kind of Mount
Oh, the
Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore. Okay, all right. I see. I see what you're saying. Okay, so basically the Mount Rushmore sportscasters. Well, I think I have to. I would be obligated to make that third option Dan Patrick because when
Yes,
I went through
that's me.
school. The school I went to is Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting. So,
Okay,
he was out there a few times, got the chance to meet him, got the chance to learn from him. So I would be
legend.
remiss not to make that number three, Dan Patrick.
Love
So
it.
of those three, I'm starting, benching, cutting those three.
Yeah, one, two, three
Um,
basically is
oh
ranking.
man, that
It's a
is
tough
tough.
one.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm going to show my bias, but I have to start Dan Patrick. I
Yeah.
have to start Dan Patrick with all that said. I'll
Yep.
go ahead and bench Howard Cosell just because he's so legendary, and I'll have to cut Bob Costas. Unfortunately, no
That's a rough
disrespect to
one.
Bob Costas, but
That's a rough one. Funny story
yeah,
about Dan Patrick. I have my daughter is 18. So when she was born, I used to have to get her ready in the morning. That was my job. My wife's a teacher. She would leave early. I always had Dan Patrick on.
yeah,
And so to this day, both my youngest daughters, my third one's older, all know who Dan Patrick is. And I still listen to him, and man, he's a legend and I'm a big fan. So how was it
yeah.
like meeting him? What was he like in person?
He was awesome. There's so many other people that I could shout out that were great. For me growing up, I mean, obviously Stuart Scott, everybody knows.
Yeah.
Even guys that have done it in a different vein. Stephen A. Smith, obviously, he's been doing it at a high level for a long time. But yeah, Dan Patrick, he was great when he would come by and help us and learn and kind of give us his advice and his mentorship. One of the coolest things he was able to do, unfortunately, my father passed away,
Mm,
over the course of the last couple of months. He
I'm
was
sorry to
dealing
hear
with a
that.
lot of health issues and, struggling for a while. So when I graduated from college, he wasn't able to make it down to see me graduate. But one of my last kind of week or 2 weeks there, and I had forgotten about this. I'd completely forgotten about this until someone told me and reminded me recently. Um, Dan Patrick was there, and I had gone down and talked to Dan Patrick, and I said, and he knew I was graduating. I had done pretty well in the program, so he was chatting with me for a little bit, and I said, so I'm graduating next week. I said my dad can't make it down to the graduation, but I said, would you talk to him right now? And if I called him and just
Whoa.
say, like, just say, hey, your son did a great job in the program, and we're proud of him, and he's going to do great things. I don't know if I told him to say all that, but something, just saying something to my dad, because he doesn't know what I'm going to end up doing, I guess, after that, right? But, you
Right.
know, just something nice about what I did in the program to my dad. And Dan Patrick, he said all right, he would do it. So I gave my dad a call, and he picked up, and I gave the phone to Dan Patrick, and I think my dad said, "Who's this?" And said, "Oh, this is Dan Patrick." And uh, it just kind of was really cool to see that moment and see him do that. I didn't think, from what I recalled from it, I didn't think my dad really thought twice about it. I think he was just like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. I didn't think it was
Huge
like
deal.
something he thought was that cool. But I guess my aunt told me like a couple weeks ago that she was like, no, like that he thought that was so cool, and he was telling
Oh,
everybody that happened. So yeah, that was definitely cool, Dan, to do that. And
yeah.
he had a lot of things where, like I remember one time I was even towards the end of the program, like the last. This is like a few weeks before that, or a month before that. He just gave me a call one day. Like he called, I was like,
Whoa.
"Who? Hello, who's this?" He said, "It's Dan Patrick to me." This time around, instead of my dad, I was like, "Oh, wow, okay." And he just told me, "You're gonna be fine. Just keep working. Don't stress out too much about the job search." And so yeah, it worked out. So he definitely he would do little things like that, and just
Wow.
try to make sure that he did what he could. Obviously he still has a full-time job, full-time career. He's
Yeah.
doing his radio show, but he does as much as he can and comes down as much as he can, and tries to be a big part of the education of a lot of people that want to get into this field.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a cool story, and he's my favorite one. So to me, that when you said that, just brings a pretty cool moment for me to hear that because I don't think he's talked about enough because
Yeah,
I think
he
he's
transcended in a lot
retiring
of
right in
ways,
a
just with what
year.
he's done, even in acting, and
Hmm.
just all the different avenues he's taken in his career with the radio show, hosting Sports
Yeah,
Center. Even what he did, for a while, Sunday Night Football. So, he just yeah, he's kind of obviously he's up there as one of the best to ever do it.
yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to see what he does. I know Seaton just left. I watched the show, so watching him leave was kind of crazy. But
Yeah.
yeah, shout out to him, and that's pretty cool that he did that. We're going to talk about food next. We like to talk about food. Our last show last week on Sunday, we spent 30 minutes talking about biscuits. So I think food's fun. We're going to go tacos, barbecue, or Italian. Which one are you going to start? Which one are you going to bench? Which one are you going to cut?
That is really tough. That is really tough. I'm gonna have to start Italian. I just,
Ooh,
Italian food's the go-to. That's my grandmother's family. They come from Sicily, not quite Italy, but I gotta go Italian food number one. I'll bench tacos and I'll cut
uh-oh.
barbecue, which is tough. You put me in a tough spot because it's like either
Uh,
way,
the Valley's going to unite against you,
Tacos the
KJ.
Valley staple, barbecue the Texas staple. So I'm having to cut one of those really tough, but yeah, I gotta with the Valley tacos. If you asked me 2 years ago, I would have cut tacos, but after being in the Valley for 2 years, it's
Guys,
definitely elevated my experience there. So
you got to get with Guy Bailey. You're the second person that said Italian first, and he said
yeah,
it. And he said because Val cooks the best Italian food. So
okay, there
if you
you
see Guy
go.
Bailey, let him know about his wife and how good the Italian food is. He's a big
All
Italian
right,
food fan.
there you go. Yeah, I'll have to check it out eventually. Hopefully, one of these days.
Yeah, let's take it back. I mean, I know that obviously you have a good history with sports and doing your thing, but I kind of want to know where you grew up, what kind of kid you were, and how was your childhood?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up out in New Hampshire, which I know is long way from the Valley, long way from Texas,
Yeah.
but just love basketball. My grandmother was really the one that got me into sports in general. She was a big basketball fan. So just talking with her pretty much every night during Celtics games, like that's kind of where I kind of, fostered that love for just talking about sports, was just talking to her over the phone about the Celtics. Seeing Rajon Rondo play, and obviously
Ooh.
they had the big three.
Yep.
But Rondo was my favorite player, just setting everybody up, and doing his thing. Is that kind of one of the last traditional point guards, you could say, in the NBA. So yeah, he was my favorite growing up. Just seeing Rondo, and yeah, that was kind of how it was. As a kid, I was always kind of the one that I'm like, I'm not the best athlete out there, but I can talk about sports. So once I realized in sixth grade, I was like, probably not making the NBA. It's probably not going to be in my future to be an NBA player. So maybe I can do what some of these other guys do on TV and talk about sports, and it worked out.
So you wanted to be a sports in sports that early on?
Yes, I mean, I remember kind of just sitting on the playground, 6th grade, feeling like this is what I want to do, and
Whoa.
it made the rest of school a little feel a little useless at times. Where I was like, look, I already know what I want to do, so let's skip this part. But yeah, from pretty much 6th grade was when I figured it out of like, okay, this is what I'm gonna end up doing, and it doesn't always work out that you kind of follow that path up until you're an adult, but that's the way it worked out for me.
What college did you go to? And I imagine right when you got to college, you probably stepped in foot first to get into it. How did that go? And what are some things that you did in college that prepared you for the next level?
Yeah, so I didn't go to college for a while right after high school. So
Hmm.
right after high school, I ended up writing for this kind of up and coming Boston sports blog website. It's called Guy Boston Sports, and got into that. Started writing a lot about Boston sports, doing shows like this. Just kind of talking about the Celtics, talking about the Patriots, all kinds of just Boston sports stuff, and just did that for like 4 or 5 years before heading off to college, and just kind of
Interesting.
writing a lot, doing different, like trying to do a podcast, and kind of just getting reps, basically doing
Yeah.
the stuff that I wanted to be doing. And eventually, wasn't making very much money off of it. It was like working a department store job, and I just said, I think I'm gonna have to go to college if I want to get serious about this. And so I ended up going to college when I was 22, and went to the Full Sail University. That's where the Dan Patrick School was. And it was kind of, uh, you mentioned the diving in head first thing. That's kind of what it was down there. I was pretty determined to find success there and do as well as I could. And it's a really fast program. You get your bachelor's in 20 months, but there's really no breaks
Whoa.
or anything like that. No summer break. You just go right through the summer and continue to do everything you can at school to try to make it to the end. And it was a great program, and just kind of taught me a lot about broadcast TV. At that time, I still felt like I maybe wanted to be a writer, and didn't know
Mm.
necessarily that I wanted to be on the TV side of things. But I committed to it, and I ended up picking up on stuff and learning what I could. And obviously, it worked out, and now it brought me here to the valley to do that thing for the sports down in the RGV.
Yeah, we can transition to that next. Where were you at before you came to the Valley? Was this your first job, or how did it come to be that you got down to the Valley?
Yeah, so I had started really being a news producer right out of college, because I wanted a job, just fully transparent. Like, I was running low on money. I was like, I had used my savings to get through college, and I was like, I just need something that's going to pay me. So
Yeah.
I ended up taking a news producer job in Maine, which was about an hour and a half to 2 hours from my dad's house.
Okay.
And I ended up moving back home, staying at my dad's house, and commuting every day, that hour and a half, 2 hour drive up to Maine to do the producing
Mm.
thing, which everyone there thought, like, you're crazy. Why are you driving that far to get to work? And I was like, oh, that's just what the price of poker is.
Yeah.
My parents drove to Boston every day to work, which was an hour or two drive depending on traffic. So I didn't think much of it. I thought, hey, it's just the commute you have to make sometimes. So ended up doing that, and I did that for about 2 months or so, and I told the news director there, I said, I'm still going to be looking for sports jobs in the meantime. She understood that. She was, okay. She said that was fine. And they needed like 3 producers at that time. So she was willing to just bring me in and let me fill that role while I could. And yeah, I ended up getting the job in Amarillo, Texas. And so that's what brought me to Texas in the first place, which is, so pretty much as far north as you can get in
Yep.
Texas.
Hmm.
Then came down as far south as you can get in Texas. So I've kind of spanned the state in that regard. But started there. They gave me the shot to come in and be the sports director there right out of the gate, which brought definitely its challenges. I'd never
Wow.
even been a sports reporter before, so stepping into that role, being the sports director, having to learn the on-air side of things and the management side of things all in one was kind of a whirlwind, for sure. And I'm sure in some ways I was not like super well suited for that role at that time because I didn't have that experience level. But I did as well as I could. I learned a lot there, and I gave as much as I could give to the city and the teams there, and trying to give them the best coverage as well. So definitely have a lot of love for the coaches out there in the Panhandle, doing what they're doing not only in football but all the sports. Amarillo Sod Poodles, minor league baseball.
Yeah.
I didn't get the chance to see them last season, but this season when they come down to Corpus Christi, I'm hoping to make the drive up to catch a Sod Poodles game. So, definitely a lot of love for Amarillo for giving me that start and that first opportunity, and that kind of parlayed itself into once that job was done, I started looking around other places, and that brought me to the Valley.
What when they told you about the Valley, how did they describe it and what were your first impressions?
Um, that's an interesting question. So honestly, before being from the Northeast, I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention enough, but I had no idea what Amarillo was before I got there. And everybody was
No.
like, "You never heard the songs, like Amarillo
Hmm.
by Morning and the Route 66, all this stuff." And I'm like, I have never heard of Amarillo. I don't know the first thing about Amarillo. And even while I was in Amarillo, we didn't play really Valley teams. There was
No.
like Tascosa played Brownsville Hanna in football like years before I got there, like maybe 2019 or something they
Yeah, that's
played.
rare.
But yeah, it's not common that they'll match up. So I hadn't really heard about the Valley even while I was in Amarillo. I'd heard of Corpus, some Corpus teams, but and especially because our old sports director, the one that was in Amarillo right before me, she ended up taking a job down in Corpus Christi because that's where she was from. So I knew about Corpus
Oh.
because of that, but I hadn't heard of the Valley really while I was there either. So my experience was kind of obviously looking for jobs, seeing this one, hearing that it was in McAllen, Westlaco, Brownsville market, kind of researching that, seeing okay, it's a decent sized TV market, and
Hmm.
really my first impression wasn't so much what they told me about the Valley, was just doing my own kind of research, and I was looking it up, and I was like, the first thing I think I saw was that it was one of the top retirement destinations,
Yeah.
in Texas, just people loving to come down, I guess, for the weather, seeing the palm trees and feeling like, okay, this is pretty tropical. I went to school in Florida, so I was like, wouldn't mind returning to a climate like that. Um, and so those were kind of the first kind of impressions I had, and just looking up different things about what it's like to live there. One of the first things that came up was just like the low crime rate is not
Yeah.
in the valley, which was contrasted by the fact that one of the other places I was looking was Springfield, Missouri, which, if people don't know, is like one of the most
Yeah, it's
dangerous
rough.
places
Yeah, I've heard
between
of it.
St. Louis, Kansas City, and
Yeah.
Springfield, all very high crime rate cities. So those things were kind of the first things that came up. And as far as like the sports scene, obviously it stuck out of, having the Vipers and the Vaqueros and all that, just kind of feeling like, okay, this is Division One football's coming to the
Hmm.
Valley soon too. G League basketball, obviously I'm a huge basketball fan, so having that was a huge appeal. And the big shock was the size of these schools, because in
Yeah.
Amarillo you have no 6As, 4 5A schools, and then a bunch of 4A,
Yeah.
even down to 1A. There's still 50 schools, which is about how many there are in the Valley in terms of UIL schools, but they're just way smaller in Amarillo. Like, we don't have
Right.
any 1A schools pretty much out here, which
No.
1A, they're playing six-man football, which I know a lot of people in the Valley aren't familiar with, but in
They
the
don't know what that
Panhandle,
is.
they know about six-man football. So, yeah, coming down and just realizing, okay, I go from 4 5A schools, no 6As, to like 12 6A, 20 something 5A
Yeah.
schools. It's just, these schools are really big, and it's cool to see them compete against each other, the rivalries that take place inside the Valley. So those were kind of the first things that really stuck out as I was hearing about the Valley, and I was coming down and just getting a gauge for things early on.
Yeah, a lot of people, when I tell them where I live, they're like, "Oh, you live by the border." Like, oh
Right.
my gosh. But to your point, it has the lowest crime rate. Like I
Right.
lived in California most of my life, and I would never leave my garage door open. Like
Yeah.
I would look at my app to see where it's at. I've mistakenly left my garage door open a whole weekend here,
Yeah.
and I tell people it's a whole different feeling when you come down
Yeah.
here.
I mean, it's a great community. It's really calm down here. I think people think
Hmm.
it's like they have this impression that it's going to be crazy or something, but it's really calm down here. It's really nice, and I think uh, the community part of it, like that even though there are so many different cities, it feels like everybody's so connected. It's like
Yeah.
you really just feel like the whole valley just all one place. It's just like all
Right.
one huge city in a way, just because it's all so connected, which is one of the parts that I really like about it. So, the Panhandle felt like that in some ways too, but definitely the valley has that strong feel and that strong community vibe around it. So yeah, I feel like that's one of the things you have to appreciate the most about the RGV.
Yeah, that's a good thing to transition when it comes to the sports. I mean, you've covered high school, UTRGV, and I know we just talked about it. I saw you at covering a high school game. You were behind the camera, right, talking about it. And we talked about a story that you had. What's one story covering high school sports that stands out to you that you can discuss and kind of bring a highlight to something special that you've seen?
Right. Well, you brought up the name Noah Lafleur, who,
Yeah.
LaFerrier athlete, obviously really talented, and that kind of sparked while we were before the show talking this story where you kind of were mentioning all the things that I do, and a lot of people sometimes are surprised. So you'll go out and just film, and 7 o'clock is when a lot of these games start, and yeah, I'll go out 7 o'clock. I'll find a game to go to just to get that extra coverage. I have people that are out shooting as many games as we can and filming them for the news. But if I can get one extra game, why not do it, right? And get that extra game for whether it's somewhere in La Feria or somewhere in Harlingen, wherever it is. Just trying to get one more game so that we're covering as much of the valley as possible. So I was out covering a La Feria football game, and first game of the season, I missed some plays. It was on me, shaking off the rust. So it was the end of the half, and time was running out, and I just didn't have enough. And I was like, man, I really cannot stay here past halftime because I need to get back to the studio.
Right.
And so I have the camera, and it's 5 seconds left in the half, and LaFerrier is on the 50-yard line, 4th and 5, I think. They had just missed a long touchdown just off the fingertips of one of their receivers, and I was like, oh, that was it. And I was like, that was it, and didn't happen. So 4th and 5, they run a draw play, halfback draw, and I was like, "What are they doing? Running halfback draw, 4th and 5 with 8 seconds left in the half." I'm like, you pick up 5 yards and then it could
Right.
go into the half. I was like, man, they're just conceding. And Noah Lafleur took it 50 yards to the house for the touchdown as time expired. Got some great blocks, made some great moves, comes right up to the camera, looks into the camera, and says, "Noah Lafleur, remember my name, Noah Lafleur." And I gave him a high five as he was going by too, and I just thought it was awesome. I was like, that was exactly what I needed, and even more so with him coming up to the camera and celebrating. Which I love to see. I love to see that and just kind of celebrate the Valley athletes and help them, have fun and enjoy their time playing sports, and something like that where they're getting to celebrate, have fun with their teammates, make big plays. You just love to see that sort of stuff, and I can say that because it was against a Corpus school, so it wasn't against one of our other schools
Right.
that he did that against. But yeah, it was a crazy play. It was awesome to see him come up to the camera and celebrate, and I did what he asked. I haven't forgot his name, Noah Lafleur, just
Now
coming
you
up and
know
doing
it.
that. So yeah, that was one of the cooler week 1 moments where I felt like, all right. Missed a couple plays, had to shake off the rust, but Karma still had my back, and Noah Lafleur still had my back, taking it to the house and getting that play on camera. So, great job by him, and just glad I was able to capture it.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get to UTRGV, I wanted to ask you because you've been in different markets, right? You've been in Maine, and you said you were in Florida for college. What's something people don't know about Valley sports that you'll tell them?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things, like I mentioned, is just kind of how connected everybody is. What I love to see is like when Westlaco went to the state championship game, the whole valley
Hmm.
was supporting that softball team in the state championship. It wasn't just Westlaco, it was everybody. And, even like I know that it's going to be the same way with, PSJA softball making this run right now,
Hmm.
the whole
Yeah.
valley getting behind them. And it's cool to see these teams make deep runs in the playoffs, and like your rivals turn into your supporters, and they're cheering you on as well. So I think that's one of the coolest things, the kind of support that we have down here for the Valley in sports, and really just like the uh, the trajectory of all Valley sports.
Hmm.
UTRGV is trending way up. The success of these programs trending way up. When you look across, even just the high school sports landscape, these teams are actually competing with some of the best in the state, and
Yeah.
making a strong push to win at higher levels. Than some of these programs have won in their history. Even Mac High. You look at Mac High softball; they just
Yeah.
made the regional semifinals for the
Hmm.
first time in their team's history. And these teams are all making pushes to end up competing at the highest level. So I think that's one of the biggest things that people should understand is Valley sports, it continues to get better and better, and I think that's just going to continue in the years to come. And I am excited to see what it's going to look like 5, 10, 15 years down the road, because I think that the RGV can really become a force on the state stage. And who knows what some of these young athletes are going to be able to accomplish. And who knows what UTRGV is going to be able to accomplish? What will become of those programs? And who knows? I know they're hoping for some FCS titles in the future.
Yeah.
And certainly at least start with some playoff wins, maybe a playoff berth. But I think that it's heading in the right direction, and I think people are gonna see the fruits of that labor sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of excitement. There's the golden age of the Valley, I think, with UTRGV coming in. And obviously, we're going to talk a little football, right? But before we get to football, I wanted to see and ask you about basketball. You're a hooper. I can tell by the way you talk about it, the passion. What are your thoughts on Lane Lord and the new coach, Brandon Chambers? What do you see them doing? I'm a huge basketball fan. I played basketball in high school, and I followed it probably the most out of any handle out there with the girls basketball, the women's basketball team. What are you excited about those two teams, and what do you think we have to look forward to?
Yeah, well, I'll start with Lane Lord because he's been obviously the one I've talked to more to this point. He is the nicest guy like you'll ever meet. Like he is just awesome, awesome human being. Always, anytime you're seeing him, he has a smile on his face. Loves to talk, loves to tell stories. Just always, it seems like he's always in a good mood. I imagine even when he's not, he's hiding it and having just. It's great to talk to him, talk basketball with him, just because he loves the game of basketball too, obviously.
Yeah,
And just seeing the teams he's put together and talking to those players, I know how much they love playing for him.
yeah,
And even talking to Charlotte, and I know you had as well. I'm sure she said the same
hmm,
stuff to you. But sitting down, doing an interview with her, talking about why UTRGV was the place for her, why it was somewhere she stayed for so long, and she credits him. She says it was Coach Lord playing for Coach Lord, and the relationship he has with his players is clearly just so strong because of the type of guy he is. I really
yeah,
think that that's what it comes down to. He's such a great guy. It's so UTRGV is so lucky to have him running that program, and I think that anybody would love to play for him because of that. And I think that's why, sometimes that's the best recruiting ability, is just that you
yeah,
have a coach that people people want to be around, want to play for, and want to having their lives really, because he's such a great support system to have as a coach. Coach Chambers, I've gotten the chance to talk with him once since he's been down here.
so
He
that,
came by our Westlaco studios and we did an interview with him. And he's another guy that, just you can tell that the passion for the game of basketball, and just talking with him, he had some great stories to tell about, his time coaching at, at different levels and recruiting at different levels and everything. And, I think what really has stuck out so far talking to him, hope to get to know him more, on a personal level, like I've been able to do with Coach Ford over the past couple years with our conversations that we've had. But Coach Chambers, I just think he's going to do a tremendous job. I think he has the experience that you need, at this level to succeed at this level, and to recruit at this level. Certainly, I think he definitely has those types of connections to be able to get some good players to come here with him. And I think that he understands and sees the assets that he has, the resources that he has at his
yeah,
disposal at UTRGV, and he has that vision of what it can be. So I think that he kind of has that strong, strong vision of what he wants this program to be, and knows that it's possible, and saw that. And I think he was really excited to take this opportunity, take this job, and hopefully help UTRGV continue to have success and kind of build on what they've done these past couple of years.
Yeah, very excited about basketball. Obviously, I'll be at as many games as I can, and I think that both Lane and Coach Chambers would love to get to know them some more. So excited about that. Have to talk a little bit about football, right? A little bit there. Coming off historic year, 9-3, out, punted everybody's coverage when it came to the expectations.
Right.
What are you looking forward to for next year? I mean, obviously, we can talk about last year. You've done a bunch of stuff on it. What are you excited about next year, and what would surprise me that you're excited about?
Well, with the football team in general, I'm excited to see, just how year two is going to look compared to year one. I'm excited to see the non-conference schedule, because that was a big thing in year one, right? They scheduled some teams in non-conference play
Yeah.
that really couldn't compete with what UTRGV had. UTRGV was able to have some big wins, and it got the crowd excited, right?
Hmm.
It kind of made for just kind of a cool, help that first season, go be so kind of special. But now I think they've scheduled some opponents, and Coach Bush has been open about this, and in his conversations with the media, that it's like, all right, now we want to do our best to set ourselves up to make the playoff, because year one, you kind of go into year one, just kind of, this is just me talking, without what they had to say about it. But you go into year one, and you're like, all right, we hope we can be good, we want to be good, but we also don't want to bite off more than we can chew. And they kind of
Right.
realized, all right, we're ready to hit the ground running as a program, we're really good already, so now let's schedule some better opponents, some better competition, and let's try to really do something here. So I think UTRGV football, the mindset is for them, I know, is to make the playoff. So I think that's what everybody is hoping they can do. It's going to be tough because they have a heavy road schedule. With some of the schedule changes they had to make. Only 5 home games in the Valley this year,
Yeah.
so I know that's something that is going to be a challenge, but it should set them up better come time for at large bids to try to make something happen in the college football playoff, or the FCS playoffs, I should say. So I think that's kind of what UTRGV's mindset is, and what the team's hoping for, and we'll see if they can make it happen. But also, obviously, from our standpoint, excited just to hopefully have Vaqueros game day back. I'm wearing the shirt now
Yeah.
for
I
Vaqueros
saw
game
that. I
day.
watch it.
Yeah, so we're still kind of in the preliminary process of planning out how everything's going to go this year after last year, and still finalizing some details on that. But I know everybody's really hopeful that we'll be able to do it again this year, and it was so fun to do that, have guests on, talk football, and just kind of have that game day atmosphere. And with it airing, in that 10 to 11 window during home games, that for UTRGV, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m.
Right.
It was a while before UTRGV games started, right?
Yeah.
But the cool thing about it was that right after we did those shows, yeah, the college game day slate started on ABC.
Mm.
So for people watching at home, kind of provided, like, this valley alternative to college game day, where it was kind of like, okay, I'm sitting down on my Saturday, I'm getting ready to watch the college football games for the day. A lot of people just love to sit on the couch all Saturday and watch all the college
Hmm.
games, right? And so it gave that alternative, people watching college game day, to say, okay, well, I want to hear a little bit about what's going on with UTRGV, I want to hear a little bit about what's going on with the Valley team, and to switch over and to see some of those stories. So I think it was cool that we were able to mix that into people's viewing experience, from for college football fans. And I just want to be able to build on that this year, and hopefully give those fans more of what they're looking for. And I think that that's kind of one of the things that I really liked about the format of it. I know that some people feel like it would be special to have it closer to when kickoff is, but I think there's something special about having it in that window right before all the college games start for the day, and getting people geared up for a big day of college football. Maybe watch a couple games before heading out to the tailgate at UTRGV.
Yeah, and that's what I'm all about, the tailgate. So I was a big fan of the coaches corner that you had with Coach Bush.
Yeah,
So I loved that. And then the stories you guys always had during the morning stuff. We always had one highlight story and
right.
feature. So I was a real big fan of that. So really looking forward. You haven't seen it, Sunday nights when you talk to Coach Bush. I've mentioned KJ Doyle is a ball knower, right? Because you have really good information. So I wanted to close out real quick with some rapid fire, if you're okay with it.
Yeah.
Outside of Dan Patrick, because that to me would be a dream interview. Who else
Right.
would be your dream interview?
My dream interview of any athlete figure. Before I get into that, I'm going to give a quick shout out, like you mentioned, to the coaches show, because that was another one that's really good. So I can't say Coach Bush because I've already done that, but you did mention, yeah, 10:30s on Sunday after UTRGV games. He was awesome, so accommodating to come out and do those. And you know I only know so much, about football. He knows way more than I do, so I just try to set him up to talk and do my best to let him give the football knowledge really there, because he's the real ball knower. I just try to make it feel like he has a space where he can talk and share some details about the game. But besides Coach Bush, my dream interview. Oh man, I feel like, honestly, I'm gonna say Bill Belichick,
Ooh,
because
yeah,
I think that Tom Brady would be awesome too, but I'll give myself the challenge of saying Bill Belichick, because I think sometimes in those like sit down interviews, I've seen him do, like, he opens up that little bit more. He's tough at
yeah,
the podium. He's tough to crack at the podium, but you
yeah.
sit down with him, I think he kind of loosens up a little bit. So I'll give myself the challenge, and I'll say I want to challenge myself, interview Bill Belichick, and see how far I can get.
Well, I know he's a big boat guy. So in
Yeah.
a couple years, when I see you interviewing him on the boat, I'm going to reference back. Say, you know what? KJ did it. He's
Yeah,
got Bill
he's got the
Belichick on the
eight
boat.
rings. That's what they call it, eight rings, because he won two as a coordinator. So the eight rings boat.
Perfect
Yeah, pretty
name.
good.
This is a kind of a common one. If not sports media, what would you be doing?
I don't know. Probably just probably nothing too spectacular. I don't think there's anything else I really could have done and been that great at. I think it was always sports media was the thing, and getting into that. If it wasn't that, at this point, I was a news producer for a little while, so maybe that's what it would have been. But I think sports media, it was always option one, and there was no option two. So
Hey, I love it. There's nothing wrong with that, right?
yeah.
Last one for me is, I'm big on spreading positivity for the Valley in 956. I bring on these high school athletes that sign to play in college, and I celebrate them and
I'll give
just
you. I'll
trying
cut
to.
you off real quick. I'll give you one, because I feel like I kind of snuck out of that last question, but I'll give you one. Storm chasing, I always thought was really cool. I don't think I was smart enough to do it,
Oh,
but some of the big storm chasers, that like tornadoes, hurricanes, that thrill of doing that, I thought was cool. So I'll say that, even though I think I'm not quite smart enough to be able to do that, but that's, or maybe I'm just stupid enough to do it. If it's like a
I
really bad
wasn't going
storm.
to say that, but you got to be pretty loco to do that. So
Yeah.
I respect it. No, my question was to basically describe the Valley in one word to close out.
Man, I wanna give it a good word. I think the best word to describe the valley would be, I mean, I want to just say special. I think the valley's a
Yeah.
special place. I think that it's just such a unique place. So I want to say special. I wish I could think of a better word than that. A more kind of a more all-encompassing word to describe the valley. But I do think it's a special place, and I think it's like special to see kind of the family atmosphere that a lot of the valley has. So I'll leave it at that. But if I think of a better word, when the episode comes out, I'll quote tweet it and say what my other answer is. But I'll leave it at that for now.
Well, I wanted to say thank you, KJ. It's been a blessing. Obviously, talking to you, I probably can go another 30 minutes, but
Yeah.
definitely looking forward to the next time you come on. And, I think people in your position, when they come down here and find out what the 956 is about, you're always going to be one of us. Right. So I know if when you go on and do not bigger or better, but do other things, right, we're definitely going to have some love for you and keep you back. So I wanted to say thank you for coming on, and we really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Roy. And I'll say this: I don't necessarily plan on going anywhere anytime soon. So I like it down here. Hopefully this can be a place that I call home for a long time. So we'll see how everything goes. Not everything's in my control in that regard, right? You never know how life's gonna play out. But I'm not in a rush to go anywhere anytime soon. So. But thank you, Roy, for having me on. Appreciate it, and appreciate everybody that's kind of supported me since I've come down here. I've tried to jump into Valley sports head first and dive into everything that encompasses, and just hope to do that more over the next few years, and just however long this kind of journey keeps going. So hopefully that's the road I'm able to take and the path I'm able to take, and we'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, it's a special place. I've loved every minute coming down here, and just hope to be able to continue to serve the Valley for a long time, and give everybody the sports coverage they love.
We'll love to have it, and we're going to end it on special. So thank you. I'll stay on, but thank you for doing this.
All right, thanks, Roy.
All right.
Y'all stay focused. Y'all keep working hard. Believe in yourself. Prove everybody that doubts y'all wrong. Show up every day. Stay pure. Keep your heart pure. Stay motivated. Stay inspired. Show love to your people.